Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. So did you see that that thing in the news of the embedded journalists from the New York Times and CNN and all of these big major mainstream corporate news media outlets? They had embedded journalists in with Hamas when Hamas did its initial invasion on October 7th into Israel and did the big massacre. Now let that kind of stew and kind of compute that for just a second. So they had embedded journalists being paid by these big news agencies in with them, and there's pictures and videos of them that they were actively, a lot of that footage that you have seen when all that took place was taken by these paid journalists from these big media companies. So they knew about it. That they could have reported, they could have warned, but they knew about it. Yeah, just think about that one for a while. I don't know what else it means other than it's just one more, as if you needed more, of a signal and a sign that this big corporate media, mainstream media, is a complete scam, fake, and just filled with lies. But yet, they'll tell you that folks like myself or some other, alternative news media is the real fake media. But anyways, I don't know why I'm saying this, because it's not really the point of today's video. I just thought I would pass that along because it's just one of those things that make you go, right? Aside from that, as I've said in the last couple of days, that we're watching the United States and the rest of the world kind of fall into a greater chaos because of what's going on in the Middle East. And not really because, that's probably a poor choice of words. It is happening in some ways because of it, but it's also been going on for a while. The psychological operations that have been played out on not just the American people, but really the whole world for a long time now are all kind of coming together. This idea that we hate each other because someone's different or we don't agree with each other on certain things. And then when things like, happened with Israel and Hamas that bring about emotions in people, well, it just kind of helps everything fall into place. And we're seeing people all over just not like each other. I mean, there's videos out of Australia where it's happening, all over the United States, all over Europe, just about everywhere. We're watching just a massive amount of violence and just people just behaving badly. And I think a lot of it is just the psychological pressure that's been put on humanity, really, over the last 3 years. I think it's, you add that with probably chemicals and food and spraying and all. It's just a lot of stuff, right? And it's probably going to get worse. And I feel like I'm just beating the drum all the time, saying the same thing. But we have to be getting prepared for this. This ripping apart of our society is quite possibly one of the biggest threats that we face. And of course, that tearing apart or tearing down could happen in many different ways, or several different things all at once. Regardless, as we're watching it kind of pull apart, we're seeing the worst of people come out. We're seeing the love of men wax cold. We're seeing just the mental illness it's just so pervasive anymore, and the hatred of the fellow man, and it's getting pretty bad. And I think it's going to get worse. I think that's going to be one of the more pressing issues of our time, is that it's just going to get worse. I mean, when you look at the economy, you look at how hard it is now to just have a place to live, whether it's buying a place or renting a place. It's expensive. Food costs expensive. Everything's expensive. You work harder and harder and harder, and you're earning less and less money, or at least your money is going, less further. That kind of stuff, that wears on people. Why do I work so hard? Why do I care? Why do I put so much effort? It's not getting me any further. Why not just do less? I'm not going to work so hard to get, even less further down the road. And you're going to see more and more of that happening. The divisiveness in our society, for various reasons, the addictions to the internet and the addictions that come from having the problems that come from the addictions of the internet. All of this crazy transgender stuff and women being, I don't know how to even nicely put it, because the men are doing the same thing where they're just selling themselves online for a little cheap fix, basically. The breakdown of the American family, the breakdown of the American church, just the breakdown of our society in general. We're watching this happen on just about every level. Education systems, pathetic. Have you seen how many schools it's been in the news that's lowered standards, or it's not that important that a student can read or write or do math. That's not that important. We're taking that out of our standard. It's okay if they graduate high school and they're completely illiterate and they have a 3rd grade math level. That's okay, but as long as they know what the transgender flag stands for, then that's all that matters. This is the society that we're living in now. I understand that there's still pockets, kind of like where I live, and many of the places where you live, where that may not be as bad. Okay, it may not be quite as bad, but it still happens. I mean, I've heard of even some of these small rural schools around here starting to accept more of the left woke ideology. There's a lot of pressure being put on them. There's a lot of pressure being put on local governments. There's a lot of pressure being put on businesses, between, grants and loans and regulations and Chamber of Commerce and all that kind of stuff to accept and adopt more of these policies. ESG is making it difficult, when a business goes to get a loan, if they don't have a good, far leftist standing, it's less likely that they might get a loan. I mean, there's so many things going on that is really pushing our whole society down this dark path of very, I believe, very satanic liberalism. And I'm not talking about the classical liberalism. I'm not talking about, your grandfather's Democrat Party. I'm talking about crazy woke left communism. And we're watching it happen every day. We're watching it destroy our country every day. Look at these big cities where you drive around and they look like you're, in the middle of some 3rd world country ghetto. In fact, some of these cities look much worse than a lot of 3rd world countries. People are drugged out, prostitution's high. Was watching a little mini documentary the other day of, I believe it was up in Philadelphia. And this one guy was a business owner. He was talking about how many times he's, had to call the police because, some homeless guy or whatever died on their front step of their business. And he said they don't act like they really care. They just come and, have the body drug off. It's just an everyday thing almost. Nobody cares. What kind of society is that? I mean, have you stopped to wrap your head around that's what America is now? That once upon a time we were some great nation that the whole world revered and wanted to be like us. We were the most prosperous nation, that we were kind of that city sitting on a hillside, And now look at us. It's disgusting. A lot of Europe is the same way. You go to Paris. Have you seen the videos out of Paris? The big, tourist trap of the world where everyone wants to come and see this beautiful city and the historical side of the city. And yet now it's just filled with garbage, trash, feces, homelessness, drugs. That's the city now. These are all very clear, definite signs. We can discount them and say, well, it's just the times that we're going through. No, these are signs that our civilization is collapsing. Will there be a point where it completely falls off the cliff and it's very noticeable? Possible. Or it may just continue this slow, progressive death. But regardless as it's happening, the evilness, the darkness, the hatred, the sickness, the illness. It's all everywhere. And it's becoming harder and harder to find little pockets where it doesn't really exist, where it's not really affected. Because even out here in the rural areas and the small little communities, there are certain signs that it's leaching out here too. And it's leaching out where you live, if you live out like this. So it is happening everywhere. And we have to take notice of it and realize that this is the path that we're on. Most likely you and I aren't going to be able to stop it. I don't think that there's any political solution to stop it. That's my opinion, and I'll stick to that. So what are we going to do instead? Well, we have to circle our wagons and take care of our own, make our circles pretty tight, and have our plans in place as this kind of falls apart. You know, for instance, my family here, we don't go out much. We don't go to town much. We cut it down to, number one, you save money. The less you go out, the less you go to town. Less you go to the store, the less you're going to spend. But we also do it because we don't want to be exposed to this stuff much more. We don't want our children to be exposed to it because it's getting to the point that you just never know, you know, around what corner you're going to see some pink-haired, whatever. You know, it's just, you just don't want to see it. And you don't want your children to see it. And so we choose to stay home as much as possible. We choose to work with our tribe, our family, our community. And we do a lot to help each other, and we do a lot to support each other so that we all don't have to, you know, go off into the deep, dark world that much. And when we do, sometimes we do it as a team. There are things that you can do to avoid it. And it's going to get to that point where we're going to have to avoid it much more because it's happening everywhere. The violence, the insanity, the evilness, it's all around us. You can say that's doomsday all you want, but it's just the truth. And if you want to avoid having that in your life or lessening the exposure in your life, you're going to have to make some pretty hard decisions and try to avoid it as much as possible. I don't have the solution, certainly, but I can tell you that all the handwriting is on the wall, folks. And I know that there's always going to be those in the comments that say, oh, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. Go ahead with your trolling comments, that's fine. If you want to keep sticking your head under the sand and believing that, that's fine. But it's pretty apparent to the rest of us that we are watching the demise of once a very, very great civilization. And I think it's only going to get worse. Folks, you need to be getting your houses in order and preparing yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.